I, 37, have been married to my wife. She's 40 for 10 years. We have 2 kids, 9 and 7. Found out that she cheated on me twice with the same guy, and to top it off, a month earlier, she came to me asking to participate in an open marriage. It's hard to believe that it's only been 10 years since my wife and I walked down the aisle. But here we are. We've been through a lot in those 10 years, kids, good times and bad times. And now this has taken me a long time to come to terms with everything that has happened. But I think it's finally time for me to share my story. I have always tried to please my wife, buy her flowers for no reason, buy her gifts for no reason, cook dinner, clean the house on my days off from work, and watch after the kids. Like most good husbands would do. But lately our marriage seemed like it stalled. I mean, our sex life has fallen off. We just normally go through the motions that most married couples do, but our communication has suffered as well. One evening after work, my wife invited me to go to a party with her. I was excited. I felt things were maybe headed back in the right direction for our slumping marriage. Although we haven't talked much about what is going on with her. She just invited us to a party. I just assumed she wanted to go out and have some fun. So I agreed. Little did I know that this party was going to be the beginning of the end of my marriage at the party. I found out later that the guy that my wife was interacting with, she was cheating on me with him for over a year. This party was being hosted by one of her coworkers who was a nice lady. Her friend was celebrating landing a big contract that her side business was awarded from some big firm. She owns a small printing shop outside of her regular job. As soon as we arrived at the party, my wife ran off to start talking to her friend. She disappeared into the crowd for about 20 minutes, leaving me feeling a little confused as to where she ran off so fast. This is not the first time she has done this. She's always been the one to run off, talk to people and socialize as the party went on. I noticed my wife talking to this one guy a lot. She just left me in the corner while she laughed and flirted with him. I could tell she was enjoying his company more than mine. I knew immediately what was happening, but I didn't want to make a scene and ruin the party. So I waited until we were home to confront her. I was angry. But I kept my cool and asked her why she was talking to this guy so much and flirting with him. She denied it, saying she was just talking to him. She said he works in an adjacent building next to hers. She said I was just being paranoid and they were simply talking about work. I didn't want to make a scene and wake up the kids. Our babysitter had just left. I just brushed it off as my wife being friendly. The next day I went to work, and on my break, I sent a text to her friend and asked if she knew anything about the guy my wife was talking to last night. She said she didn't know him. The only thing she knew was he worked in a building next to hers. But she did say that my wife had been talking about him a lot lately when her friend told me that my wife was talking about this guy a lot. Kind of put me on notice that maybe I should pay more attention to my wife's friends. They're the ones who are with her when I'm not, and they see things that I don't. It was a wake-up call for me, and from then on, I started to pay more attention to what her friends were saying when we were with her friends, and you know what, they were right. My wife was talking about this guy a lot. She didn't care if I was around when she made remarks about him or talked about him. And I had been too wrapped up in my own life to notice. It seemed she was so disrespectful. I started to feel like I didn't know her anymore. We had nothing in common. It was like we were living 2 separate lives, but our kids kept us joined at the hip. My wife makes pretty decent money. She works for Staples and she is the store manager. I work for a decent-sized computer company which I co-own with another guy, and we do pretty well. We have a nice house in the suburbs and we have 2 cars, one for her and one for me. I was content with my life. Even though my marriage was struggling. I thought maybe things would get better with time, but they didn't. They got worse even after attending parties and get-togethers with friends and coworkers. We still could not kickstart our marriage again. My wife started working later hours. She said it was because she was taking on more responsibility at work. But her friends would tell me that she was going out after work, sometimes with that guy she was talking to at the party and other times with her friends. I asked her about it and she would always have some excuse as to why she was out so late or why she didn't come home at a respectable hour. I knew something was going on, but I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to think that my wife was cheating on me. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that's exactly what was happening. Fast forward 3 days, she comes home from work with this wacky request. She asked me about an open marriage. I said what she said, she had been thinking about it for a while and that she wanted to try it. I was completely floored. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of her mouth. I asked her why she would even think about something like that, let alone ask about it. She said she wasn't happy and that maybe this could help our marriage. I told her there was no way I would ever participate in something like that and that if she wanted an open marriage, then she could have one. But I would be moving out and taking the kids with me. She didn't say anything after that. We just went to bed and went to sleep. When I got up the next morning, I knew that my marriage was over. The fact that my wife was asking about an open marriage. Yeah, I wasn't staying in this, but I wasn't just going to run off. I wanted answers. And from the looks of it, my wife wasn't going to be honest with me. My gut was telling me she was cheating, but I had no proof. She was. It was stressful because I wasn't just thinking about myself. I was thinking about my 2 boys and what this would do to them. I had to make a decision and it wasn't going to be an easy one, but I had to think about what was best for everyone involved. Not just me, I decided I was going to hire a private investigator. I already had one in mind. My partner is friends with a local guy who does quite well uncovering dirt on people. I discussed with my partner briefly why I needed his friend and he promptly gave me his contact information. I gave him a call and we met up later that day to discuss what I wanted him to do. I told him everything and he said he would take the case a few days later. He had enough evidence to show me that my wife was cheating, not just with that guy she was talking about at the party, but with multiple guys. I also found out that she had been cheating on me for over a year. When the private investigator showed me the footage, I had tears in my eyes. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. The private investigator gave me a number of a woman who was a very good divorce attorney and I gave her a call. I told her everything and she also told me that because my wife had been cheating on me for over a year, I had grounds for divorce. She said I could file for divorce on the grounds of adultery, mental cruelty and abandonment. I decided to go with adultery and mental cruelty since those are the 2 main reasons why I wanted out of this marriage. I asked the attorney about the house we just bought and what about my 2 kids. Because I wanted primary custody of the children. My attorney also said that just because my wife cheated, doesn't mean she would lose custody of the children. She said 50-50 custody is more common in those cases. I asked her how long it would take to get the divorce finalized. And she told me anywhere from 6 months to a year depending on how cooperative my wife was going to be. I really didn't want to wait that long for my life to be in limbo, but there was nothing I could do. I had to let time do its thing. In the meantime, my next plan was to find a place to stay and take the kids with me. I knew this would cause a bunch of friction, but I didn't care. Fast forward 3 weeks, I have a security place for me and the boys to live and I put down a deposit. Then I had to wait until my wife worked late so I could leave without any drama between me and my wife, and I had to somehow prove that moving the kids away from their mother is in the best interest of the children. The system is so broken and it's biased against fathers. They say that we're not capable of taking care of our children, that we're not good enough. But I'm here to tell you that fathers are just as capable as mothers. We have just as much love to give and just as much to offer. We should be given the same chance, the same opportunity to prove ourselves, because in the end, all we want is what's best for our children, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let anyone take that away from me. When my wife came home that night and no one was home, she freaked out and called me about 100 times until I finally answered. She was screaming and yelling at me, telling me how could I do this to her and leave without telling her. I explained to her that I know she cheated on me multiple times and I couldn't stay there anymore. I told her I would be taking the kids with me and she could see them whenever she wanted, but they would be living with me. She didn't like that too much, but there was nothing she could do about it. She then says, I will fight you for the kids. I told her, you don't have to fight me for them again. You can come see them anytime you like. Then she said, hell no, I want full custody. I simply told her that won't be happening. I then hung up the phone. The next morning, I get a call from my attorney. She says, we have to go to court. Your wife is fighting you for custody of the children. I asked her, what do I need to do? And she said, just be there and tell the judge why you should have primary custody of the children. So that's what I did. I went to court and told the judge my story. I told him how my wife had been cheating on me and lying to me for over a year. I told him about how she wanted an open marriage and how I found out that she had cheated on me multiple times with the same guy. I also told the judge that I didn't think my kids being in that environment would be conducive to my children's mental health. Then I explained to him that I had found that place for me and the kids to live and that I would be able to provide for them, and how my wife could come see them anytime she wanted. Then it was my soon-to-be ex-wife's turn to speak. And all she did was talk about how much money she makes and how she could provide for the children. She didn't say one word about how she could be a good mother and how much she loved her children. Then the judge spoke and he said, based on everything I've heard today, I'm granting 50-50 custody. You two need to come up with this schedule that will work for the both of you. If you can't, the court will step in and do it for you. I wasn't too happy about the decision, but I can fight that later. But right now I have to be okay with 50-50 custody after the court hearing my soon-be ex-wife, and I came up with the schedule. We would alternate weeks even though we have joint custody. Since I make the most money, I have to pay child support. I don't care about that. I just don't want to pay alimony. And on the Georgia law, I probably won't because my wife was caught cheating and I can prove it, which affects alimony. As the divorce hearing nears, my attorney informs me that my wife is asking for alimony as well, but she's not asking for very much. I told her I don't care how much she's asking for. I'm not paying it, and my attorney said we'll see what the judge says. The day of the divorce hearing comes and my soon-to-be ex-wife is there with her attorney. And so am I with mine? We go before the judge and he asked me, my soon-to-be ex-wife, why she should receive alimony. And she simply says, because I need it. The judge then says, ma'am, your husband has presented evidence that you were unfaithful in the marriage. And on the Georgia law, that means you are not entitled to alimony. Her attorney then speaks up and says, but Your Honor, she has 2 young children that she has to take care of. And the judge says, I'm sorry, ma'am, but your husband is paying child support for the kids and that should be more than enough to take care of them. So the judge rules that my soon-to-be ex-wife is not entitled to any alimony, and I am ecstatic about the judge's ruling. So it's official, I have to pay child support and I don't have to pay alimony, and I am divorced. As the weeks go by after the divorce hearing, I am starting to settle into my new life, and I must say I'm enjoying it. I learned from my kids that their mom has a new boyfriend and he doesn't interact with the kids, which is okay. My oldest son also told me that his mother had to get a second job and she is always at work and they are with the babysitter a lot. Certainly, that's information I could use if I wanted to go back to court and fight for full custody. But I don't think I am going to do that. I'm just going to enjoy my new life and let my ex-wife live hers. We still keep in touch because of the kids. But other than that, we don't talk much. By the way, the guy, she was cheating on me with the one that persuaded her to ask for an open marriage, dumped her and moved on to someone else.